In this video, I discuss 10 signals that suggest you are prepared for retirement. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
We've all been through a lot this year, with markets down over 20%, 25% for many people, maybe even more. People are having a hard time thinking about retiring this year or even next. Still, if you're one of those people that questions whether you have what it takes to retire, there are indicators that point to a yes or a no in many cases. I will say that being 100% prepared for retirement is a little like being too healthy or too wealthy. You don't know when you've arrived, but you definitely know when you're not there. So this list is here to help you calibrate, but ultimately only you can decide whether it's time for you to retire or stay in the game. Also, as a reminder, if you have not already downloaded my free retirement ready checklist, go to holyschmidt.com/checklist for your free copy. It's my gift to you. It's absolutely free, and it is something that you'll find quite useful both today and in the future. As always, I will remind you at the end. Point number one, there are about half a dozen points that indicate that you are financially prepared. The first is that you have a retirement budget. You know your costs explicitly. This is very difficult for most people because they've never had a budget in the past. The fact is 2 out of 3 people don't have a budget. If this is you, it's important that you know how you're going to spend in retirement. Because if you don't have a sense of how you're going to spend, you won't know if you have enough cash flow to cover your costs. As my old accounting professor once told me, if a company takes in $100 million a year in revenue, but they spend $101 million, they are losing $1 million a year. The math works that way every single time. So job number one is to know your future costs even before you know what your future income looks like. This is easier than it sounds because the process is actually quite simple. It's also harder than it sounds because most people have never done it. But the objective is to be super complete and forecast 3 different scenarios. A survival scenario where you're in a very bad economic environment, a normal scenario, and an upside scenario, an ideal scenario for you. It's important that you know all 3 scenarios so that you're prepared for both good times and bad times. Number 2 is you know what your income looks like in retirement, your cash flow. This includes distributions from things like your 401k or your IRA, a pension, interest income on investments, dividends from investments, cash flow from property, annuity payments, and the big one for most people, what your Social Security payment will look like. It's important to note that virtually no one has all of those sources of income that I just listed. So if you only have 1 or 2, just write them down. It's important to know exactly what they are. And if you have a lump sum amount in something like a 401k, remember the 4% rule. The amount you can take out is 4% of the principal amount plus inflation every year. Most people think that that amount, even in today's day and age, will keep you safe from spending more than you have, especially in your later years. The next signal is that you have no consumer debt. Credit card debt is a killer in retirement. The reason is that a credit card has such a punitive cost and it doesn't represent most people's financial reality. Credit card companies have 2 types of clients, those that pay their bills and those that don't. And unfortunately, with credit cards, because they aren't securing something like a car or a house, there are more people that don't pay their credit card payment. If this isn't you, and the chances are good that this isn't you if you're watching this video, then you are subsidizing the risk from someone who actually doesn't make that payment. That's why the credit card rate is so high. My personal opinion is that credit card debt is the single biggest mistake in retirement, so pay off your credit card ASAP. Signal number 3 is that your house is paid off. For most people, their mortgage is the single largest payment that they make every single month. By the way, there's a growing school of thought that says if you have a 3% mortgage, let's say, and inflation is raging at 8%, then you're coming out net 5% ahead. So why not keep the debt outstanding as long as possible? I could make a mathematical argument for it, and most people would agree with the math anyway. They may not agree with the principle, but they will agree with the math. However, wouldn't it be good if you had all of that cash flow that you could just dedicate to living your life in retirement? The next signal is that you are not financially supporting someone outside of your household. If you're supporting a child, a parent, a relative, or a friend, and that person doesn't live with you and therefore doesn't share in the benefits of having 1 utility bill, 1 mortgage payment if you have a mortgage, etc., then there is a real chance that you are underestimating what your cash flow will look like in retirement. You are, in effect, not supporting just 1 household, but 2 in many cases. The reality is that you can only cut so much cost before your fixed obligations kick in. And if you're paying for two, that fixed obligation can be huge. So if you are supporting a second household, make sure you include that in your retirement budget. That way you know what your true costs will be, both today and potentially into the future. The next signal is that your Social Security is maximized. For many people, they take Social Security as soon as possible, and there are good reasons for it. For other people, they wait until they're age 70, and there are good reasons for that as well. The fact is that the longer you wait, the larger your Social Security payment, and it grows significantly. It grows by 6 to 8% per year plus inflation the longer you wait. Also, it's worth noting that when you retire, that doesn't mean that you need to start drawing on your Social Security. In fact, many people will wait a few years so that they get the benefit of a larger payment. Having said that, many people do need the Social Security payment when their paycheck stops. This is an entirely personal decision, but go into it knowing that your objective is to maximize your Social Security payment and have an idea of what that payment should look like. Signal number 7 is that you have funded your emergency fund, fully funded your emergency fund. When you're working and you have an emergency, if you need to, you can put that emergency on a credit card and pay down that debt over time with the income from your job. But when you don't have a job in retirement, your options are limited on how you repay such a large obligation. Also, one of the most common uses of an emergency fund is to fund your lifestyle if you lose your job until you get your next job. But if you don't have a job, that emergency fund isn't there to cover the gap. 3 months is pretty standard. Some people prefer 6 months of funds. The choice is up to you and your understanding of your own lifestyle. The next signal, number 8, is that you have health insurance. When you go into retirement, you need health insurance. Most people have Medicare if they're age 65, but if you're retiring before age 65, private insurance is a must. Some people go on their spouse's plan. Others take out private insurance through an insurance marketplace. Still others buy an individual medical plan just to cover the gap between their age and age 65. But you can't go into retirement without covering your health insurance costs. It's just too risky. Point number 9, you have planned for your post-retirement social network, your social activities. Let me explain. One of the most common points discussed on this channel, particularly in the comments, is the pros and or cons of having a social network. Some people say, I am getting out of the workplace and I don't want to be around another person ever again. Others are entirely and wholly social and they need to be around people pretty much every waking hour of their day. They plan their retirement and enter a community with a vibrant list of activities and ways to engage with other people like themselves. My personal view, even if you don't think this right now, is that when you step out and away from the hustle and bustle of your job after 40 years, at some point you will want to be around other people again, and frankly, other people that are not in the ultra high competitive elements of a workplace environment. The point 10 is that you're just disinterested in your job. You're showing up and you're just going through the motions. You don't really care about the work that you do or the output that you produce. You have long since stopped worrying about that part of your job. If this is you, then that might be a clear sign that it's time to retire. If you're still passionate about your job, then you'll know whether this is the right time to step out of the workforce or not. And I'm going to add one bonus point, number 11, and that is your health is suffering. Some jobs are extremely hard on the body. Others are extremely hard on the mind. They're very, very stressful. These two elements can manifest themselves into a very unhealthy outcome for your body. If either of these situations applies to you and you feel like your health is suffering, that might be a signal that it's time to leave the workforce. Of course, in either case, you should see a physician because work may just be one of the elements contributing to bad health, and you need to see the big picture of how it all fits together. As a reminder, don't forget to download my free retirement ready checklist at holyschmidt.com. As I said, it's my free gift to you. If you haven't downloaded it already, it's a one-page checklist and it will help you focus the mind on the biggies of retirement. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please consider clicking subscribe and turning on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. There's a lot of change happening in the world right now, and I work very hard to get that information out there in here for you, and the only way that you can get quick access to it is to click subscribe and turn on notifications. I post about twice a week, and I think you'll find that this information is quite valuable both today and in the future. Also, check out this video on 10 surprises people experience their first year in retirement. It's one I put out a few days ago, and it is quite popular. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.